Hello friends, this is Nazmijan. In this video, I'm going to show you the game played between the legendary Grandmaster and former world champion Garry Kasparov and several times Dutch champion Jeoren Piket. As we all know, both players retired from competitive chess and they continue their careers in different areas. And one thing about Jeoren Piket is that after retiring from competitive chess in 2001, Piket went on to become the manager of the correspondence chess player Van Oosterom. I don't know how to pronounce his name. And after this, Van Oosterom became the world correspondence chess champion in 2005. And this shows how successful Jeoren Piket is at chess. Okay, let's go to the game. Garry Kasparov is white and Jeoren Piket is black. This game was played in Amsterdam in 1995. E4. Kasparov played any move in the opening. Generally, he played E4, D4, C4, Knight F3, but in this game he opts for E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop C4. As we all know, Grandmaster generally prefer the move Bishop B5, the real opposite opening, but sometimes they opt for the openings like Scotch or with your piano like this, Bishop C4, Bishop C5, and B4. Around 19th and at the millennium, Kasparov generally prefers this kind of stuff like Evans Gambit, and this is the case here. Of course, black can take on B4 with his bishop, C takes B4, bishop takes B4, sorry. And after this, we have the game which I analyzed before, the legendary world champion Fischer and Fine game that was played in New York 1963. That game played like this, bishop a5 and so on. But in this game, Piket decides to decline the gambit by playing bishop b6. And to prove something, white has to do something on the queen side, and he went for a4. This immediately threatens to trap the bishop on b6. As you can see, after knight f6, a5, bishop d4, c3, bishop cannot go anywhere. So he has to do something about that. He can do two moves, a6 and a5. In this game, Jeoren Piket went a5, but this move regarded as dubious nowadays because of probably this game. And grandmasters generally play a6 in this position to preserve the bishop on a7. a5, stopping a5 but allowing b5 move. Knight d4, setting up a little trap, little funny trap I want to show you. This of course gives up the pawn on e5, but black has a funny idea in mind. If knight takes d4 is in the game, if knight takes e5, queen g5, attacking the knight and the pawn on g2, and after knight takes f7, forking the rook and the queen, queen takes g2, attacking the rook, rook f1, queen takes e4, bishop e2, of course queen e2 cannot be played because of knight takes e2, and bishop e2 and knight f3 is checkmate. So of course Kasparov doesn't fall for this, but it's funny to note this. And after knight takes d4, probably c3 looks normal, but it's so easy for black to equalize after knight takes, queen takes, and it's easy to protect this pawn by playing queen f6, and black immediately equalizes here. Knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, attacking the rook, but c3 is there, bishop b6, and d4. One of the ideas behind Evans Gambit is to grab space in the center and to get ideal pawn formation. These pawns on e4 and d4 is called ideal pawn formation if it can be stabilized there. So black shouldn't let it, but as in the game, e takes d4 is not the most appropriate way to meet this. Nowadays it should be choose for black to play queen e7 and after castles d6 and preserve this central pawn on e5. d4, e takes d4, Piket takes this pawn and sets up a little positional threat. If white captures on d4, it seems the central pawns very strong, and as we said, if it looks advantages, but now black should destroy this pawn center. While I'm analyzing the chess games, I generally asking myself how this or that move was played. How would it be in that case? And I found a way, I think, how to continue here. Black can destroy white center by just playing d5 move, a very strong move. And even if even this pawn can be taken in two ways. Let's say bishop takes d5 or e takes d5. It's still okay for black after, let's say, bishop d5, knight f6, trying to attack white center and bishop. If still white tries to preserve this pawn center by playing bishop g5, black can force white to take and still attack the d4 pawn, and he continues to castle, take on d4 and develop his c8 bishop and equalize immediately. And if after d5 e takes d5, black can play in many ways knight moves, but I think the most exact way is queen e7. This move is important because after probably bishop e3, not allowing white's bishop to develop on a3 square, black can go knight f6 and castle. And he equalizes because of these weak pawns, and he will attack and grab this pawn later on. Okay, Kasparov, of course, castles here after he takes d4, and Jeoren Piket doesn't go greedy by playing d takes c3, because his pieces then would be underdeveloped. And after queen b3, attacking f7 pawn, by natural moves, white will have a nice initiative like this. Then suddenly black is in danger. Still king is stuck in the center, and also white's threatening to play knight d5, which cannot be met by c6, because after taking c6, then there is the bishop hanging on b6 square. So Jeoren Piket plays knight e7, and still Kasparov doesn't fall for this little positional trap. If c takes d4, then black can equalize immediately by destroying white center, just playing d5, and e takes d5, knight takes e5, rook e1, and it seems that white prevents black from castling, but after queen d7, you can see the flexibility of black's position. He can castle long and continue to pressure the d4 pawn and get a normal game. So Kasparov, after knight e7, plays forcefully bishop g5. He wants to have this very nice center by taking d5, and black is, of course, shouldn't allow white what he wants to achieve. h6, bishop e7. Of course, you can play bishop h4, but Kasparov has an idea in mind. Bishop e7, queen e7, c takes d4. And it's very interesting to note that in this position, computers suggest queen d6 move, and which looks very normal, attacking d4 pawn. But this move actually is a very weak move, because it doesn't develop any piece, and of course blocking the d pawn and prevents this guy sitting on c8 from developing. And after queen d6, Kasparov went on a very strong move, but before doing that, we should note that black should probably here play something different, like castling, and continues on developing. But let's move on to the move played in the game, queen d6, and you may try to find the move which Kasparov played here by stopping the video. We can say that d4 pawn cannot be protected. Let's say bishop d5, trying to protect this pawn. Then there's queen b4. d4 pawn cannot be protected. Then black is ready to castle and get a normal game. So Kasparov went on a very nice idea by just developing the knight and doesn't meet black's threat of taking on d4, knight c3, and this pawn can be taken in two ways. In the game, Piket take on d4 and wants to castle, but it's very funny to watch the analysis of queen takes d4. After this, you might expect that white should do some attacking stuff, not exchanging queens, but he goes like this, sacrificing this piece on c4, and after takes, he calmly develops his rook c1, and now there arises a curious situation. After queen a2, there are two very nice lines, give white a decent game, almost winning game, but one is very funny, I think, showing how white's ideas work. That is, knight takes b6, c takes b6, queen d6, preventing black from castling and trying to block d7 pawn. Queen e6, as it seems that black will exchange the queens and castle and get a winning position after all because of his extra piece, c8 bishop. And e5, forcing black to capture. Queen takes d6, e takes d6, and it's very interesting that even though black is up a bishop, he is almost having a losing position because he cannot develop his bishop, he cannot develop his rook, and after, let's say, trying to develop this rook by playing king d8, rook e1, rook e8, rook takes e8, king takes e8, and even after he's a piece down, white's a piece down, and probably he's winning because black even cannot move. Black cannot do anything. Let's say after f4, g4, king f2, centralizing the king, rook e7, black is helpless against all white's threats. But one normal line after queen a2 is just to take on c7 by hit the rook, and after bishop takes c7, which is probably forced because we want to take on b6, bishop takes c7, knight c7, king d8, knight a8, black's king is in the center, and probably it's almost winning for white in this position. So after knight c3, it's understandable that Piket went on bishop d4 and he wants to castle. Okay, knight d5, a very strong move. I think this move was prepared by knight c3. You cannot play knight c3 without thinking the exchange sacrifice. Knight d5, very strong move. Bishop takes a1, queen takes a1, attacking g7 pawn, castles, normal move, and even after f6, that looks funny situation. The same idea of trapping that bishop on c8 and get a nice initiative by playing b6. Let's say c takes b6 because it cannot be played knight c6 because there is knight c7. C takes b7, rook b1, and black cannot castle, cannot develop his bishop, cannot develop his rooks. So it's almost winning for white again. Queen takes a1, castle. And white should go forward still. e5, queen c5, and rook c1. White doesn't let his opponent to develop his forces, the c8 bishop and rooks. He doesn't let his opponent to develop those pieces. And now he has a threat of playing knight c7 and bishop takes f7. Queen is vulnerable on the c file. So c6 and bishop a2, attacking the queen, bishop a2, and trying to disrupt this queen from playing an important role protecting squares around dark squares on b6 and e7. Queen a3, and one funny line is if he plays queen a7, trying to prevent white from playing knight b6, then queen will get mated after b6, queen b8, of course queen a6 loses the queen after bishop c4, b6, queen b8, knight c7, and even after rook a6, white will not take the rook and let the black forces join the game, and he will just protect the pawn by centralizing his very strong queen. And when you look at the position, it's very hard to suggest a move for black here. It's almost no moves. You cannot play d pawn because there is en passant, and you cannot play the bishop, you cannot play the queen, rook has no squares. This rook can go here, but what's he doing there? Just leaving the f7 pawn weak. Just no moves here. This shows how white's forces are stronger than black's, and even he's an exchange down. So queen a3, knight b6, attacking the rook, and he wants to breathe, so he sacrifices back. But even though it seems that he can escape with his rook, but there is another important threat. By removing the knight to b6 square, this bishop can now play bishop f7, and now there's a queen hanging there. Knight b6, d5, preventing white to take on f7, but there's knight a8, and now it's suddenly over. White is up a piece, and knight is up. King h8, knight b6, bishop e6, h3, just some king luft in the endgame. Rook d8, bc6, bc6, rook c3, queen b4, rook takes. The rest is easy for Kasparov. Knight takes d5, queen takes a4, rook c1, just protecting the queen and allowing this piece to protect this d5. And after queen e3 and bishop c4, black resigned, because this is an easy technical task for Kasparov to win this game. He's up a piece and he has full control. A very nice game by Kasparov, but we can look back for some critical moments in the game. b4. Of course, this Evans Gambit we will look later on to, as we did in the Fischer Fine game. Bishop b6, a4, a5, b5, knight d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes b4, c3, bishop b6, d4, e takes d4, and white wants to, of course, achieve an ideal central pawn formation by playing c takes d4, but as we said, it's easy to destroy for black by playing d5, so why shouldn't fall for this positional trap? Castles, knight d7, bishop g5. Kasparov plays all this game very forcefully, not allowing his opponent to employ his own ideas. h6, bishop takes, queen takes, c takes d6, and this is probably the most critical moment of the game. Queen d6, and after this, white has a huge initiative. He's leading development besides the game here. Knight c3, bishop takes d4, and the most remarkable move of the game, knight d5, which ends the game practically. And after that, Kasparov wins the game because of black's undeveloped forces. And in this game too, like Fischer's game, being behind in development causes big troubles, and in this case too, these guys sit and wait there doing nothing during the whole game, and Kasparov won a very nice game. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.